saying, brother. The numbers don't lie.
Cream rise to the top. Oh,
yeah. Welcome to the cell. What you gonna do when Payne runs on you? Back to the broadcast. My good buddy Payne joins me. I messed that up. We're gonna leave it in though.
I'm back again. Am I the most often guest so far?
Yeah, I guess so.
Good.
But yeah, I mean, you have a role of watching the movies with me, you know, which, by the way, we'll have to talk about what we want to watch. I know what I want to watch next.
You're probably going to say something I don't want to watch.
Well, that's the point, is they're all bad, so... I really want to watch See No Evil, the Kane movie.
That's a thing?
Yes.
Did you mention that last time? I don't remember that.
Yeah. Which, that is going to be saved for another day, because today it's Pro Wrestling Genesis. It's the beginning of pro wrestling and the backstory of how we got to where we are today, because Payne is not a pro wrestling fan. And not only that, but he doesn't really know much about pro wrestling. Now we're picking something up where I get to share with him my love of pro wrestling, and specifically WWE, and we go on and on from that.
We'll see how it goes.
So
a hater as of now.
Yeah. So disclaimer, we are not going to go actually way back in time. So maybe calling it Pro Wrestling Genesis isn't the best of title to go with, because we're actually going to start in 1982.
Okay, I can deal with that.
And if there's any questions, any comments, please make them, because I want you to ask them. And we're just going to kind of go over briefly some of what I believe to be the biggest moment in WWE, WWF history. And again, what brought us up to where we're at today in WWE. And from 1982 all the way up until about 2014, we're going to be pretty light. Or that's my plan anyway. I guess you never know. But then once we pass into like 2014, 2015, that's where we're really going to pick up and get into some of the nitty-gritty details, because those are the years that really formed where we're at in 2024.
Okay. On it.
Okay. Well, it all started June 6, 1982, where Vincent Kennedy McMahon bought Capitol Wrestling. And by the way, my sources come straight from WWE.com, so yeah. I just wanted to put that out there, that this is pretty close to what WWE also says is their definitive how things came to be, and their most important things, right? So, June 6, 1982, if Mr. McMahon hadn't taken over the family business from his father, Vincent J. McMahon, this timeline would not exist. His purchase of Capitol Wrestling marks the beginning of a revolution. Mr. McMahon builds on the regional success of his father's company with soon-to-be household names such as Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, and Rowdy Roddy Piper, turning WWE into a national powerhouse. And
I know two of those names, at least. Yeah,
and, you know, a little bit before there, for Payne, and maybe for others that are listening that do not know, who has been the longtime owner since 1982, Vince McMahon Jr. Bought the company from his dad, who was really wealthy, and he was ready to retire, and he had some early onset sickness, and he just wanted to live out the rest of his life basically peacefully, right? And a really important part of why Vince wanted to buy this company is because he really saw a potential to make it the monopoly it was today. Because another thing you want to bring up is in 1982, they were in the territory days. We weren't quite yet in the golden age of pro wrestling when Hulkamania started to run wild, which we're going to get to in just a few seconds. But what Vince McMahon, the more popular Vince McMahon, the infamous Vince McMahon that's in the headlines today, what he saw on that day was wanting to take over and basically take his father's territory of the Northeast region and then just expand it all across the United States, dive into Canada, get some stars from Mexico, and then also go to Europe, and then the UK, and everywhere else, right? So that's kind of the motive behind Mr. McMahon in these beginning stages. And unless specified, when I say Mr. McMahon, I mean the more infamous one, not his father, who was the OG, the original that had it before him.
Okay, dumb question. Number one, you ready?
Yeah.
So, okay, it's the World Wrestling Foundation, right? That's what it was called.
Federation. But yes.
Oh, whatever, it's the same thing. So, I was under the impression that it was just like the United States, and then they just made the rest of the shit up. Like, is Rey Mysterio from Mexico? Like, just an example. I'm not saying that.
So, is Rey? Yeah, I believe Rey is from Mexico. I guess I don't know specifically like where the real person Rey Mysterio is from, who has a different birth name.
Like the character is from a different spot, but the guy himself could be from anywhere, and they just like made it up.
Well, I'm pretty sure Rey Mysterio, as in like his entrance, is based out of like San Diego, California. But I think the real Rey Mysterio, which would be something Guerrero, I'm pretty sure is his shoot last name, which shoot means real. I believe he is actually from Mexico, maybe? I guess I don't know. I could look that up, but whatever. But
interesting.
But not every wrestler where they're billed from is from the place where they're actually from. For instance,
isn't like Seth Rollins from somewhere different or something like that?
Seth Rollins is the exception. He is shoot from Davenport, Iowa.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, there are exceptions. Seth Rollins is the exception, but that's not his real name. His real name is Colby Lopez.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which actually, that's
Cena's real name, John Cena.
John Cena's real name is John Cena.
Okay, I was going to be mad if it wasn't.
And I'm pretty sure he is actually from West Newbury, Massachusetts. But but no, the real life Undertaker is not from parts unknown.
Well, yeah, but like, I didn't know. I just figured it was like a U.S. based thing and not like we actually do explore the whole world. Like, do they have? I thought they just like toured in the U.S. or whatever they do.
No, they definitely go to Europe and the UK and Japan, and yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah, especially more nowadays. Like, it was more limited in the 80s. I would say that in the 90s was when they really started to pick up a European craze, and I'm pretty sure we go over that once we hit the 90s.
Okay.
But that's for later, because right now, we were just in 1982, and then we go up to 1984, January 23rd, 1984 more specifically, and this is where Hulkamania runs wild. So Hulk Hogan becomes the first person to escape the camel clutch of the Iron Sheik, before blasting the Iron Sheik with his signature leg drop to win the WWE Championship. From the moment the official counts three, the Hulkster emerges as the standard bearer of WWE. And a little bit more detail into Hulk Hogan is Vince McMahon really wanted a superhero and quite literally the face of a company, a pro wrestling company, a protagonist, which not every territory and or federation had. But he really wanted that, Batman or Superman of DC Comics, or Spider-Man or Iron Man of Marvel Comics, that sort of thing. He wanted someone to literally carry the brand and be the good guy.
Doesn't a part of his costume, doesn't he have like a cape? Is that why? Or am I making that up?
Hulk Hogan? No, Hulk Hogan is.
I thought he came out like with a cape.
What? Hulk Hogan? Come out with a
cape. He has like a shawl or something, and then he like rips it off.
He wears a shirt that he rips off, but not a cape.
I swear to God, I've seen him with a cape.
No, but
I've seen him with bad 5 o'clock shadow that's like dyed too. That was funny.
That's WCW, babe. But no, Hulk Hogan. There is a really funny photo of him wearing a lederhosen, which I don't know where that photo originates from, but I know I have that saved on my phone. Yeah,
that is I'm sure that's an all-time classic picture.
Yeah.
Then.
Now, Hulkamania, with that being said, wasn't the only star. Another big fan favorite would be Roddy Piper. Yeah. And June 26 of 1984, Roddy Piper invited Jimmy Superfly Snuka onto his Piper's Pit and mocks his heritage. Now, in these beginning stages, the early 80s, one very common trope was the Americans versus the foreign powers. A bunch of different wrestlers from different areas. Like a moment ago, I just said the Iron Sheik. He's from another part of the world, a different country. There's Yokozuna, who is from a different country. And then, so you're going to hear a lot about these foreign wrestlers that may or not have actually been foreign. Another famous one, Andre the Giant, who in real life is French. And is he billed out of France? I don't know if he's billed out of France. Maybe somewhere else. But still. So, yeah, at this time, you also have wrestlers like Roddy Piper, as previously mentioned. And then we get into July 23rd of 1984, and we have the Rock and Wrestling Connection. And this is the first really big mainstay for the WWE to have, like, big celebrity talent joining them. And it was Mr. McMahon who forged a relationship with a fellow upstart media conglomerate on the rise, MTV. The union, dubbed the Rock and Wrestling Connection, produced The Brawl to End It All, a WWE special which airs on the Music Channel and features pop star Cyndi Lauper in the corner of Wendy Richter as she defeated the Fabulous Moolah for the Women's Championship. The bout pulls record ratings for the fledgling network. And what's funny about this is there is no way in hell I would be able to picture Cyndi Lauper into pro wrestling today.
I can't either. She has some bangers too, but like not like wrestling bangers.
Well,
I don't think people that doesn't correlate.
No, the fan bases definitely do not correlate unless you're going for a complete 80s like feel, then sure, I guess they mix. But like for your standard Cyndi Lauper fans to your standard wrestling fans of today, there's no way. That would be a very strange connection. And this new media outlet continued as in 1985, March 30th of 1985, the Hulkster became the first WWE superstar to host Saturday Night Live.
Real? I didn't know that either.
Yeah. I mean, SNL was still fairly new at that time, but Vince McMahon had a strong emphasis on the importance of connecting pro wrestling and or WWE to other entertainment outlets. As we just said, Cyndi Lauper, SNL, adding more comedians, other fantastic athletes we'll get into in a little bit here. So yeah, there's more and more from that. And it wasn't until May 11th of 1985 that Vince had his first televised creation. Saturday Night's Main Event debuted on NBC May 11th of 1985. Before monthly pay-per-view becomes a norm, this is where fans got a chance to see their favorite superstars battle it out between early supercards. The first show features a clash between WWE Champion Hulk Hogan and Cowboy Bob Orton, and Wendy Richter defending her women's title against the legendary Fabulous Moolah. This is also a trend that continues once Raw comes about, is a lot of the television tapings end up just being squash matches, which what those are, you have the popular wrestler or maybe the antagonist wrestler, and you have him just go up against a jobber, which is just literally a random guy, and he just gets beat on for like a minute or two. So the early days of televised wrestling, besides the pay-per-views that they eventually get into, really were boring. And there was really no wrestling versus wrestler or wrestler versus wrestler action until the pay-per-view.
That's kind of nuts to me. So
Yeah.
they just like have some random buff guy come out and get the shit beat out of him?
A lot of the times they're not even buff because Vince really wanted to push these WWE superstars are superhero as a narrative. So a lot of the times it was just an average Joe that would come out. I mean, he would still be dressed up in like a wrestling singlet or whatever, but he, like I said, he'd still get the piss beat out of him.
This sounds just like American Gladiator.
And what's crazy to me is this era, the golden era, is of so many people's favorite era in pro wrestling. And I always think how it was the least competitive. And I know a lot of people argue that, but this is where it was most true to being a sport. And it's like, really? People like Hulk Hogan, larger than life figures, and Andre the Giant, and superstars being billed from where they're actually not from, and then you have the Undertaker. That was the most realistic form of pro wrestling to you, and that's something that I've never agreed with.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm. And then throughout 1985, there was even more connections. Like Hulk Hogan got his own cartoon, which he became the first WWE superstar with his own cartoon. The show.
There's no way that's real.
Yeah, the show was called Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
Who was the first wrestler to get a cereal?
Probably Hogan. I mean, they were serious about pushing. Well, actually, no. It had to be way before that. First WWE superstar under Vince McMahon, probably Hulk Hogan.
That's nuts. I knew he was like popular. Like I've heard the name, of course.
Oh my god,
hundreds of times, but I didn't know that he was like the guy.
It was honestly ridiculous how pushed he was. Like again, like people grew up with him. So to him, he was like, who was your hero when you were a kid? Well, like in a fantasy sense, like Batman, Ben 10 or whatever.
Probably.
Pokemon sort of thing. He was that for the kids of the 1980s.
That's such a weird thing to think about.
And he's also someone that is such a fictionalized person in his head. So like by the time wrestling really became real, or I say real, to me more real and more of a competition-based thing, and like where they didn't have just horrible storytelling, in the later 90s especially, Hulk Hogan still stayed around, and so many people still continue to want Hulk Hogan be like this cartoon character, going up against like, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, who were very much like legit athletes. Don't get me wrong, Hulk Hogan is huge, was huge, and all that stuff, but he was not like a flying off the ropes type of superstar. He was a pick you up and just, throw you to the ground.
Throw you around.
Mm-hmm.
He was in one of the Rocky movies too. I know that.
Yeah.
Seen that one.
Yep, you would be right in saying that. And then we go into 1986 through 1990. This is where I wrote the welcoming of a forever WWE through pay-per-view. This is where I think WWE, in terms of wrestling, really was born. I mean, again, yeah, you had the wrestling matches, but it was still so many jobbers. And you still had a lot of that throughout the TV shows, but finally you have pay-per-views where you get to see matches like Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan instead of Hulk Hogan versus Steve Smith.
I've seen like some sort of like it was like a documentary or something, but it was like cut up for TikTok where it's like part 700.
Yeah.
And they're talking about that and how like Andre like hated Hulk Hogan, so he actually like beat the shit out of him.
Sure. Now we go into 1986, as I just said, and WrestleMania 2 is here. And WrestleMania 1 was really successful, but WrestleMania 2 is really when things started to get hot because for whatever reason, and WrestleMania 2 was the only WrestleMania to do this, they had WrestleMania happen in 3 different locations. Excuse me, which was just strange. So they had a match in Chicago, they had a match in New York, and they had a match in LA with celebrities all across the globe happening at the same time. And I guess this was just their tactic to continue to spread out WrestleMania and have it become like a huge thing. But having a sporting event happen at the same time, same date, but at different places is just so weird to me.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot like a PR nightmare to me.
Yeah. Okay, it's the Olympics, but all of the running events are taking place in Chicago, and all the throwing events are taking place in Texas. It's like...
yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And then we get to September 6th of 1986, WWE Superstars launches. The premiere of WWE's flagship show of the late 80s and early 90s. WWE Superstars sees the debut of WWE Hall of Famer and bird enthusiast Coco Beware, which you would
bird
love.
Enthusiast?
Yeah, he's basically a walking, talking parrot with a live parrot on his shoulder.
What?
Yeah, Jesse Ventura also returned to commentary at this inaugural taping of WWE Superstars. This is the show where you heard kids would wake up and watch wrestling on Saturday morning while eating cereal.
It was a Saturday morning thing? It wasn't like at night?
Yeah, that's also quite strange, isn't it? I mean, it eventually moves into nighttime audience, but this is where... again, kids wake up and it's basically like cartoons for them. I mean, in the early days, in my opinion, WWE was seen way more as a cartoon, but live action, more than, what we have today, which is a high action, high intensity storytelling, mature audience based thing. And again, the 80s are much different than the 2020s with the maturity and the way things have changed in terms of things that are culturally acceptable, but it's still just something that I'm not a big fan of. And the more podcasts I end up doing, I think the more you as the listener will find that I was not the biggest fan of the 1980s for pro wrestling.
It's wild to me that they were competing with like Ninja Turtles. Yeah. for airtime.
I mean,
that's
sure.
Crazy.
And other, Saturday morning stuff. And then March 29th, 1987, WrestleMania 3 is here, and the biggest WrestleMania in history draws an announced 93,173 to the Pontiac Silverdome, setting a new indoor attendance record. The epic main event between WWE champion Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant features the iconic body slam and Andre's first pinfall loss in WWE. Also on this night, Ricky Steamboat defeats Randy Savage for the IC title in a technical masterpiece. That is true. So, some interesting things about WrestleMania 3. This, a lot of people would say, is the best WrestleMania of all time. And
of all time?
Honestly, yeah. Now, the age range of folks that would say that would still be, the younger kids back in that day. So maybe like the 40 to 50-year-olds of today would be the ones saying that. That's something that I wouldn't say, but still I do recognize had a lot of incredible moments. So WrestleMania 3, as I just said, Hulk Hogan slammed Andre. Prior to that, and this isn't really true, but in storytelling was true, no one had slammed Andre the Giant before WrestleMania 3. and Hulk Hogan was the one to do it there. And I just mentioned Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Macho Man Randy Savage. That match is legit a great wrestling match. That's what I feel to be a great wrestling match, not the Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior feat of strength test and all that stupid hokey stuff. You know, Macho Man versus the Dragon was real wrestling, is real wrestling. And I think there is... No, I would say most definitely there is a lot more wrestlers influenced by those guys today than you could say Hulk Hogan from a wrestling standpoint.
In what way is it that? So it was like just brawn, and then there's like actual skill in that match. Like Hulk Hogan was just all brawn.
Yeah. This is where in the Macho Man match, this is where these guys were flying off the top rope, and they were doing spins, and they were doing crazy vertical feats, and they were doing really cool looking moves that were influenced in luchador style with kicks and stuff. Because, you know, you watch a Hulk Hogan match in 1987 or an Andre the Giant match in 1987, and it's very slow moving. It's, you know, they're just basically pushing each other back and forth. And, oh my gosh, who's the strongest? Who's going to trip who over? And it's just, that's not for me, you know?
Wait, I feel like the clips I've seen of like wrestling probably in the past, let's say like 10 years because of TikTok, because it comes up on my feed all the time because of you. It seems like that's like really all they do now, except for they like throw them around their body, like they like are like attached. I don't know how to say it. Like they like swing around on each other.
We'll have to. I'll make you watch some extreme moments and some best of move compilation, because I'm not doing it justice just by saying words. It's something that you really need to see. In November of 1987, the 26th to be exact, was when WWE birthed its second pay-per-view, which became an annual occurrence, and it was Survivor Series. It presented multiple elimination tag team matches. Andre the Giant captains a team, a victory over Hulk Hogan's squad, and earns a rematch against the Hulkster for the WWE Championship. Meanwhile, the Honky Tonk Man overcomes 3 opponents by running away from them.
There's no way this is his name.
Yeah, that's true. Honky Tonk Man also used to be the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion, but it was only just 2 months ago maybe that Gunther of today has surpassed him for the IC title holder, which is, I'd say, like the bronze medal of wrestling championship belts in WWE anyway. So yeah. Very prestigious belt. And then not too far into the next year, January 24th of 1988, the third pay-per-view is born that we still see today. It's the Royal Rumble. Airing on the USA Network, the inaugural Royal Rumble match featured only 20 superstars and was won by Hacksaw Jim Duggan after he dumped one-man gang over the top rope. Other competitors in the soon-to-be annual brawl include future WWE Hall of Famers Bret the Hitman Hart, Harley Race, and Tito Santana.
Okay, so the Royal Rumble has been relatively the same. It's been like a 30-man fight or whatever.
Yeah.
This whole time.
Yeah. I mean, it was
crazy.
Born in 1988 as a pay-per-view. Now, there was Royal Rumble type of matches beforehand, just with different names. But this is where the pay-per-view was born, where it hasn't missed a year since.
Jesus Christ. That's a lot.
Yeah, and then it wasn't until 1993, I want to say, where the Royal Rumble stipulation was whoever won got to main event WrestleMania or challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship or WWE Championship. So there's been minor changes.
They're just doing it for fun. They're like,
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And we get into February 5th of 1988. Andre the Giant and a crooked official and the Hulkster and... Oh, I read this really weird. Hang on. Andre the Giant and a crooked official and the Hulkster's 4-year reign as WWE champion. A victorious Andre hands the title to the $1 Million Man, who has paid the Giant handsomely for the title. Commissioner Jack Tunney shows up to declare the WWE Championship vacant, setting the stage for WrestleMania's 4 title tournament. At that event, Randy Savage defeats the $1 Million Man in the tourney finals to emerge as the new WWE Champion. There's a lot of information in there that I'd like to break down for you. So, ever since the inception of the Vince McMahon we know today, Hulk Hogan has had the WWE title. So the 4-year reign ends on February 5th, again by Andre the Giant and a crooked official. Andre is the WWE champion for less than a day, less than an hour, because he hands the championship over to the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. However, that's against the rules. And another thing that was quite weird at this time, Vince McMahon was not known to the public eye as the owner of the WWF. He was
like a commentator, right?
Yes. So they had a storyline commissioner named Jack Tunney who made the belt vacant. So then we didn't have a WWE champion for basically 2 months. And at WrestleMania 4, they hold what basically becomes the inaugural King of the Ring, which is where wrestlers have multiple matches on one card, and it's single elimination, and whoever wins that became the WWE champion, which was Macho Man Randy Savage. And at this time, Hulk Hogan became so popular, this is where he started to get some TV roles, some commercial roles, some movie roles. You mentioned Rocky earlier. This is where that started to play into a factor, so he needed time away to be able to do those things. But that didn't last long, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So SummerSlam arrives in August of 1988. The biggest event of the summer kicks off in Madison Square Garden with a heated main event featuring the mega powers of Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, conquering the $1 Million Man and Andre the Giant. Also on this night, the Ultimate Warrior finally ends Honky Tonk Man's record 15-month Intercontinental title reign. So that's proof from earlier when we were just talking about Honky Tonk Man. And by the way, Honky Tonk Man's gimmick is that he is an Elvis impersonator.
That is actually the lamest thing I've ever heard.
And so he comes out and he looks like Elvis, and Elvis has been dead for like 15 years plus at this point. And he has his guitar that he doesn't know how to play in real life, by the way.
Oh my God.
They end up doing a lot of other like really dumb extracurricular deals, like meaning the WWF. And one of the things they do is they make an album where wrestlers sing on the album. And one of the main focuses of it, because he is Elvis, the Honky Tonk Man, who sings on the album. And there's like a music video that MTV was a part of where he plays the guitar. But again, he does not know how to play the guitar. So there's a very infamous clip online of him magically playing guitar while over the stereo and PA, guitar is being played. So it's like lip singing, but with a guitar. It's ridiculous.
That is. And why would we even make a music video?
I know. And again, people are like, this is my favorite era. It's like, how? It is so stupid. It's ridiculous.
It is very bad.
I don't understand it. April 2nd, 1989, at WrestleMania 5, Hulk Hogan overcomes his former friend Randy Savage to win the WWE Championship. Elsewhere on the card, Rick Rude upsets the Ultimate Warrior to score the IC title. Plus, Shawn Michaels and Mr. Perfect make their WrestleMania debuts. while Roddy Piper returns for the first appearance in WWE in 2 years. So the Mega Powers exploding was really big because Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan were booked as these best friends, tag team champions that could not be beat. And they were both the faces of the company, the protagonists of the company. So that marked like the first time where basically best friends stopped being best friends in the WWE, and then they started to feud with each other, which then influenced so many other things throughout the years.
I don't. That's such a weird. Like, were they like actually friends, like in real life, or were they just like?
They took steroids together. So, however you interpret that.
For sure they did.
However you interpret
that. Tell me that.
Yeah. And officially in 1989, Hulk Hogan Goes Hollywood. No Holds Barred, starring Hulk Hogan, is released in theaters. The first film produced by Mr. McMahon. It becomes a part of WWE action when actor Tommy Lister, who plays Zeus in the film, shows up in the WWE to avenge his on-screen loss to the Hulkster. So this is crazy. So basically, WWE Studios is born right here, right? This is the first like real WWE-produced movie. Hulk Hogan stars as basically himself, but with a different name. Okay?
Oh, my God.
Wears different colors and everything. The antagonist in the movie shows up in real life to confront the real Hulk Hogan, which then starts a feud. And it's a guy named Zeus who has a bald head, except for a very small patch just above his ear that has a Z right over it. And he also has one of those inverted crossed eyes where one eye is straight, but the other is pointed like to his nose.
Oh my God.
It's insane. He looks like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle villain, to be fair.
Kind of sounds like it. Who wants just a letter on their head? That's such a.
Do you have anything free? You got to look them up.
Yeah, I'll look him up right now. What year is this again?
Type in Zeus WWF.
Oh God. Wait, what?
Yeah.
This guy. Wait a second. This can't be real, really?
Yeah.
This guy is in a Falling in Reverse music video.
Oh, yo. That's wild.
That's how I recognize him.
That's crazy. Okay. And then we officially get to 1990, April 1st of 1990. This is the first WrestleMania headlined by two fan favorites. The event sees Hulk Hogan's first pinfall loss to the Ultimate Warrior, and the only WrestleMania match ever contested between the Intercontinental and WWE champions. Another first, the event is hosted in a foreign country at the Sky Dome in Toronto, Canada, with the young Edge and Christian in attendance. So, how foreign is that to go just a little north?
Yeah, I was about to say.
Of their hometown, because the WWF it's a New York-based promotion. So it's like, wow, that they just crossed the border. Like, literally. So, wow, how landmark is that? This, by the way, came from, again, the WWE.com website of the timeline of the WWE. So it's just crazy. And this is where I think you get your first glimpse of politicking in pro wrestling, in the WWE at least. I don't know if you heard me. I tried to emphasize it. But it was the first pinfall loss that Hulk Hogan had taken since being under Vince McMahon in the WWE. So 8 years it took him until he took his first real loss. And a lot of that reasoning, because Vince wanted to push him, sure, but also because Hulk didn't want to do the job. He didn't want to lose. And that is a common theme with a lot of different wrestlers all throughout the years. Yeah.
Like the Rock, he can't lose, I guess. I've heard.
And a very popular politicking is going on right now. People are saying that The Rock is politicking to main event WrestleMania. He just became one of the shareholders of the TKO group, and a lot of people are super mad that he is headlining versus Roman Reigns instead of Cody Rhodes. And I'm going to talk about that in the other episode released this week. So that's for another story. Just insane stuff going on there. And it was November 22nd of 1990 where we had the dawn of the Dead Man. Mystery and speculation surrounded the identity of the $1 Million Man's fourth Survivor Series team member, who's revealed to be The Undertaker. The terrifying rookie impresses, eliminating Dusty Rhodes and Coco Beware. The Dead Man, with his larger-than-life and death personality, becomes the embodiment of this era, in which colorful characters are the norm. Oddly enough, the Phenom shares his debut date with the Gobbledygooker, who is a pro wrestling turkey who emerged out of an egg.
No way.
Yeah. So there was a man who played a turkey mascot.
No, there's actually no way.
They killed it off like right away. Yeah.
Sounds like some Thanksgiving shit.
For real. And this is where wrestling has its first, oh, wow, this is starting to take a fantasy turn. Because The Undertaker has these magical powers he uses sometimes. Being able to, resurrect himself, not feel pain, walk through fire, that sort of thing. Strike lightning down in the 2000s. That's kind of the first of this. I mean, there was some iterations before, but this is a pretty big step. And finally, August 26, 1991, perfect execution. Leaving his tag team days behind him, Bret the Hitman Hart wins the first of his many singles titles when he defeats Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam and Madison Square Garden. The bout will go down as one of the finest in the August event's storied history. This is important because not only, like I said, is this one of the best Intercontinental title matches ever, but it's also the first iteration of the fans wanting a wrestler to really go over who previously really wasn't as a singles competitor, that being Bret Hart, who will eventually become the face of the company once Hogan leaves again. But we're not there quite yet, because now we move to January 12th of 1992, and maybe the most infamous backstage segment of all time, and my favorite of all time. This is where the Rockers split. After bickering for months, Shawn Michaels lands sweet chin music on Marty Jannetty and sends his partner through the window of Brutus Beefcake's barbershop talk show. HBK would move up in the business. Jannetty would simply move on. So, again, this is where influence comes in. Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty, storyline, best friends, tag teamers, much like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage. They're fed up with each other, and HBK turns heel by kicking him through a window. And it's a really cool visual, actually, with it being 1992 and all. So he goes through the barbershop window, and then that's one of the first times where it's like, yo, who is this guy? Well, they knew him, but in what direction is he going to be turning, right?
How long had Shawn Michaels been? I know the name and I kind of know his face, but how long had he been around at this point?
Not very long, and he hadn't been a singles competitor at all. I couldn't tell you the exact date, but just a little bit in the 80s, 88 maybe, 89.
Interesting.
And finally, January 19th of 1992, just a week after that, 3 months after arriving in WWE, Ric Flair shocks the WWE Universe when he enters the Royal Rumble match at number 3 and hangs on to win the over-the-top brawl and the vacant WWE Championship. It's the first of the Nature Boys' 2 runs with the coveted title. So this was really interesting because, so I'm just covering WWE right now, but at the same time, there's still pro wrestling businesses going on, right? And Ric Flair is wrestling for a business called WCW, which was the main rival to the WWE. And he was the World Heavyweight Champion. Wrestling fans would know that belt to be known as the Big Gold, which is pretty highly coveted as the prettiest and maybe the most well-known belt in the history of pro wrestling, because this is the belt that they would move along the territories with. This is the belt that Ric Flair won 16 times with in the past and set the record for most reigns for a World Heavyweight Championship. And for him to bring it on a rival show is pretty insane. And to also win it and defend it off of a WWF pay-per-view is even crazier. So some may say this is the first time where a wrestler entered that forbidden door of going from one promotion to another, because you have to keep in mind in the wrestling business, at least at this point, there's only, depending on whatever company you work for, that's the only company in the United States in storyline. No other ones exist. So it's pretty significant for an outsider to come in and have his title be worth so much.
I know that you have gotten mad at me for this in the past, but I still barely know who Ric Flair is.
Oh, dude. Okay, yeah. This is one of the craziest things I've heard from you. Ric Flair is literally one of the most popular pop culture people ever. I mean, the Migos have a song based on him. The Woo, Ric Flair.
Never heard it. If he doesn't have a Slim Jim flavor, I don't know who he is.
Well, damn. All right. Well, I guess that proves how much you know about pro wrestling, really. So a fun journey we'll be on. Finally, we get to 1993, January 11th. We welcome Monday Night Raw. And something I want to do with you in the future is watch Monday Night Raw and these old episodes and get your live reaction, because I think that would be hilarious. But Raw debuts. Broadcast from the Manhattan Center, the show airs live in front of fans who witness uncut, uncooked, and uncensored action, hence Raw. In their respective matches, Shawn Michaels and Undertaker are victorious against Max Moon and Damien Demento. And this is where you see more of the showcase of the pro wrestlers getting wins over jobbers.
Why would they have jobbers still on, like, I can't believe that would be a thing still, especially when they're starting to get more and more names.
I know. It's really frustrating. And really, it's because they want to save those for the pay-per-views. Because
you know how much they cost at the time? Like how much a pay-per-view would
the pay-per-views? No, but I can tell you that the early 2000s, I know that they'd be worth up to like $100, which that's a lot of money. That's so like a popular
8 hours at Walmart to watch some wrestling.
Yeah. So a popular thing to do would be to basically have a watch party and watch with like 5 of your buddies, and then you all just split a fifth or whatever.
I guess like that would be the truth with like video games at the time, like having LAN parties.
Yeah.
Everybody would meet up at one person's house.
So I expect it to be probably similar in price, pretty expensive. to watch these.
Yeah, now you just go on TikTok Live and find someone.
No, they have good prices now. I mean, a Peacock subscription can, that'll get you all the WWE pay-per-views, and you just have to pay $10 a month.
Oh, well, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah. We get to April 4th, 1993, and this is one of the worst WrestleManias ever. The WWE title is defended twice in one night at WrestleMania 9. Bret Hart lost to Yokozuna in the main event. But people were basically so mad that minutes later, Hulk Hogan came out, who hadn't been with the WWE in a long time, and he just pinned him. There was no stipulation where he was like awarded a match. He legit just came out and just put him on his back and pinned him. And out of nowhere, Hulk Hogan was the champion.
Is that how they explain, like, people coming back? Like, is that why The Rock is, like, allowed to fight at WrestleMania? Because they're like, oh, he just came?
I wouldn't say that, because The Rock and Roman at least have pretty rich history, because and beef, because they're, like, legit related, and they have ties. This literally came out of nowhere. Hulk Hogan was basically mad that he wasn't getting paid what he thought he deserved, which was crap anyway, because he was already by far and away the most paid man on the roster by like 10 times the amount. He wasn't even the champion at the time. He was part-time doing movies, and he basically was like, screw it. And the crazy part is, fans were so over with him, people loved him so much that they were just fine with that happening. No one else could do that, ever.
Oh, so he, like, I guess I misunderstood. So he just said fuck it and went out there? They didn't, like, make that up?
Yeah.
Oh, that's odd.
I mean, I'm sure, like, Vince was okay with it backstage, but, I mean, it really just came down to those two, and it was just dumb.
That, I do agree, that sounds dumb.
Hogan had so much pull, and it was super, super frustrating. And on poor planning on my part, not realizing how long this would take, we are going to have a part 2, which is also going to be released by the same release as today. So make sure you tune into the latest episode of The Cell, where me and Payne are going to pick up on our talk post WrestleMania 9.